Now, I want you to completely wipe your mind of sterile laboratories and high-tech microscopes. Instead, teleport with me to the Eagle Pub in Cambridge. It's a seemingly ordinary afternoon, February 28, 1953. People are knocking back pints, grabbing lunch, maybe complaining about the weather. But listen, this wasn't just some ordinary lunch. This was the exact day biology's deepest, most profound hidden history was unmasked, right over a round of beers.
Suddenly, the doors fly open. Two men, Francis Crick and James Watson, burst into the pub. And I mean, they didn't just casually stroll in. They made a dramatic, unforgettable entrance. Out of nowhere, one of them shouts to the entire room, "We have found the secret of life." It was literally a modern-day Archimedes moment. Sure, they didn't leap out of a bathtub completely naked shouting Eureka, but the raw, earth-shattering emotion, exactly the same. They had just solved the absolute greatest mystery in the history of biology.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the craziest part, this profound secret of life, is actually astonishingly simple. The big secret they discovered was the precise structure of DNA. They realized it was a double helix. Just picture a twisting spiral staircase. And on the steps of that staircase are these tiny atomic pearls. The mind-blowing part here, there are only 4 types of pearls. Just 4 simple atomic letters, A, T, C, and G. That's it. That is the entire genetic code for literally everything that has ever lived.
To really put the power of those 4 letters into perspective, let's just look at us. If you compare your specific sequence of A, T, C, and G to any other human on Earth, you are 99.9% identical. I mean, only 1 out of every 1,000 letters is different. But it gets even crazier. If you compare your DNA to a chimpanzee, you're 98.6% identical. We share nearly our entire genetic blueprint with them.
Now, you might be wondering, this brings us to a massive biological mystery. If humans are the absolute pinnacle of evolutionary complexity, we build towering skyscrapers, write breathtaking poetry, map the stars, do we naturally possess the largest, most complex genetic blueprint on Earth? It seems like a pretty logical assumption, right? Bigger brains, more complex behaviors, surely we need way more genetic letters to build us.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how reality completely shatters that assumption. Humans have about 3 billion genetic letters. If you printed them out, that would fill roughly 200 massive phone books. But an onion? 18 billion letters. And a microscopic amoeba? 670 billion. No way, right? An amoeba actually has over 220 times more DNA than you do.
So how on earth is that possible? Why does a literal onion have a bigger blueprint than Albert Einstein? Well, the answer is junk DNA. Letter count absolutely does not equal complexity. In amoebas and onions, billions and billions of those letters are just non-functioning, repetitive loops. Broken records, just playing the exact same meaningless tune over and over again. They don't actually build anything useful. It's just junk.
So if it's not the sheer number of letters, what actually makes life so complex? Look at the caterpillar and the butterfly. One is this crawling, leaf-eating worm. The other is a beautiful, delicate flying insect. But here is the truly bizarre reality. They share the exact same DNA. They just look completely different.
And that's all because of a fascinating concept called gene expression. It is not about the letters you have, it's about which ones are turned on at any given time. If you look at a cell from your heart and a cell from your eye under a microscope, they have the exact same 3 billion letters of DNA inside them. But the eye cell only opens the specific instructions for building an eye, and it totally locks all the doors to the heart instructions. This leads to one of the most shocking subversions in modern genetics. Scientists naturally assumed that because humans and chimps are so incredibly different in intelligence, the gene expression in our brains would be radically different. But when they checked, the brains were highly similar. The biggest, most drastic difference in gene expression wasn't found in our brains at all. It was found in the testes. Yeah, our reproductive systems operate wildly differently at a genetic level, far more than our minds actually do.
All right, shifting gears, Section 2, the cellular factory, dwarfs and fruit blenders.
To really understand how just 4 microscopic letters can actually build a living, breathing creature, we need to translate complex molecular biology into a really simple story. So let's map out a cellular factory. Imagine a dense forest. That's your cell. Right in the middle of this forest is a highly secure locked castle. That's the nucleus, where the DNA is kept incredibly safe.
Outside the castle, just scattered all around the forest, are thousands of blenders. These are what scientists call ribosomes. And finally, we have pieces of fruit, which represent amino acids.
Now, think of the human body as a very hungry, very picky giant. To keep this giant alive, to build its muscles, eyes, and beating heart, the giant needs perfectly blended smoothies. In chemistry, there are about 500 different types of amino acids out there, but to create life on Earth, this giant only requires 20 specific types of fruit. Just 20 amino acids, blended in millions of different combinations, literally create every single protein in your body.
But here's the catch. The blenders don't know the smoothie recipes. The master recipe, the DNA, is locked tight inside the castle. Enter the fast dwarfs, or what scientists call messenger RNA. These tiny messengers sneak into the castle, copy the master ATCG code, and rush it right out to the blenders. But there's a wild twist here. When they copy the recipe, they absolutely refuse to use the letter T. Instead, they swap it out for a U.
Meanwhile, waiting right next to the blenders are the supply dwarfs, known as transfer RNA. Each supply dwarf is holding one specific piece of fruit. One holds a mango, which is the amino acid methionine. Another holds an apple, for leucine. Another holds a pear, for proline. They are just standing by, completely ready to drop their exact fruit into the blender the split second the recipe calls for it.
Which brings us to the real climax of our story, and the ultimate biological cipher that Francis Crick had to solve after he walked out of that pub. You have a recipe written using only 4 letters, A, U, C, and G. But you have 20 different fruits waiting by the blender. How on earth do you map 4 letters to 20 fruits? So the crucial point is the mathematics behind the cipher. If the blender reads the recipe 1 letter at a time, you only get 4 combinations. Obviously, not enough for 20 fruits. If it reads 2 letters at a time, like AU or GC, you get 4 times 4, which is 16 combinations. So close, but still not enough. It wasn't until 1961 that they finally cracked it. The blender must read the recipe 3 letters at a time. 4 times 4 times 4 gives you 64 combinations. Finally, yes, way more than enough for all 20 fruits.
This massive 1961 breakthrough led to the discovery of what we call the codon. A codon is simply a 3-letter genetic password. Every single time the messenger dwarf feeds 3 letters into the blender, that specific 3-letter codon acts as a direct, undeniable command for one specific amino acid fruit to be dropped straight into the mix.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer elegant design of life. There are exactly 64 codons. That's it, the whole shebang. Those 64 3-letter combinations dictate every single biological process in absolutely every living thing on our planet. It is literally the universal language of the cellular factory. But wait a second. If there are 64 codes and only 20 fruits, what do all those extra codes do? Well, the system has built-in redundancy. Multiple different codes can ask for the exact same fruit. For example, if the recipe reads UUA, UUG, or CUU, the supply dwarves know that all 3 of those passwords mean one thing. Drop in the apple, drop in leucine. Other codes don't ask for fruit at all. They just act as structural commands that tell the blender to start or stop blending. When you put it all together, it creates this incredible paradigm-shifting resolution. This exact same dwarf and blender factory system, driven by the exact same 64-letter cipher, is operating inside you right now. But it's also operating inside the trees outside your window. The exact same 4 letters, simply arranged in a different order, build an elephant's massive trunk, the delicate wing of a fly, and the unbelievable processing power of a human brain. From a casual afternoon knocking back pints in a Cambridge pub to the total decoding of life's cellular factory, we've seen how simple atomic pearls can be strung together to create the infinite complexity of the natural world. But it leaves us with one final, awe-inspiring question. If nature used just 4 letters to build the human brain, as we learn to write this code ourselves, what else will they build? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.